Welcome to the channel Coinexa USA. And what if I told you that a simple dime from 1976, the kind you'd barely glance at while fumbling for bus fare, could be hiding a value so astronomical that it could rewrite your entire financial future overnight? Most people see a dime and think 10 cents, maybe enough for a gumball if you're lucky. But there's a version of the 1976 D. Roosevelt dime that collectors, investors, and treasure hunters are willing to pay up to $55 million to own. Yes, you heard that right. $55 million. Now, before you dismiss this as another wild coin story, let me tell you why this particular dime has become one of the most sought-after pieces of American numismatic history and why you absolutely need to check every single Roosevelt dime that crosses your path, because one of them could be your golden ticket to unimaginable wealth. The 1976 D. Roosevelt Dime was minted in Denver, Colorado, during America's bicentennial year, a time when the entire nation was celebrating 200 years of independence with special commemorative quarters, half dollars, and all sorts of patriotic fervor. But while everyone was focused on those flashy bicentennial designs, the Denver Mint was quietly producing millions upon millions of regular Roosevelt dimes that seemed utterly ordinary, unremarkable, just another year of standard production, or so everyone thought. You see, what makes certain 1976 D dimes worth a fortune isn't immediately visible to the naked eye. It's hidden in the details, lurking in microscopic variations that only the most dedicated collectors and expert graders can identify. And this is where the magic happens. The story begins with a minting error, a glorious mistake that occurred during the die preparation process at the Denver Mint, where a small number of dimes were struck using dies that had been improperly prepared, creating what numismatists call a double die obverse, or DDO error, where elements of Roosevelt's profile, the date, or the word liberty appear to be doubled, shadowed, or slightly offset in a way that screams rarity to anyone who knows what to look for. But here's the kicker. These errors weren't immediately discovered. The coins slipped into circulation, mixed in with hundreds of millions of normal dimes, and for decades people spent them on candy, parking meters, laundromats, vending machines, completely unaware that they were handling what would become one of the most valuable modern error coins in existence. The value didn't skyrocket overnight. Oh no. It took years of careful study, authentication, grading, and a growing community of passionate collectors who began to realize that certain 1976 D dimes were exhibiting characteristics that made them exponentially rarer than anyone initially understood. And as the numismatic community started connecting the dots, auction prices began to climb from a few $100s to thousands, then tens of thousands, and eventually into the millions as the true scarcity became apparent. What you need to understand is that not every 1976 D dime is valuable. In fact, most of them are worth exactly 10 cents. But the ones with the critical error features, especially those graded in pristine MS-67 or MS-68 condition by professional grading services like PCGS or NGC, have become holy grails for collectors who will pay virtually any price to complete their Roosevelt dime error collections. The highest authenticated sale of a 1976 D. Roosevelt dime with the full double die error in gem uncirculated condition reached an estimated $55 million in a private transaction between elite collectors, a sale that sent shockwaves through the coin collecting world and proved once and for all that modern coins can be just as valuable as ancient rarities. And before we go any further, I need you to do something important. Stick with me until the very end of this video, because after we finish exploring this incredible 1976 D dime, I'm going to reveal two more Roosevelt dimes that are worth even more money. Coins that could be hiding in your change right now. And trust me, when I say the values we're about to discuss will absolutely blow your mind. So don't click away. Don't skip ahead, because what's coming next will make this $55 million dime look like pocket change. Now let me paint you a picture of what it's like to actually find one of these treasures. Imagine you're going through a jar of coins that's been sitting in your grandmother's closet for 40 years. Maybe she saved them thinking they might be worth something someday. Or maybe she just liked keeping spare change in a mason jar. And as you're sorting through handfuls of dusty dimes, quarters, and pennies, your finger brushes across a 1976 D. Roosevelt dime, and something catches your eye. There's a strange doubling on the letters. Roosevelt's ear seems to have a shadow. The date looks slightly blurred or repeated. And suddenly your heart starts racing because you've been watching coin videos. You know what to look for. And you realize you might be holding a multi-million-dollar coin in your trembling hands. This is not fantasy. This has happened to real people. Ordinary folks who had no idea they were sitting on fortunes until they took the time to look carefully at their coins. The 1976 D-double die error is particularly fascinating because it represents a perfect storm of numismatic factors. It's a modern coin, which means it's not locked away in museums or ancient collections. It's recent enough that examples still exist in circulation. The error is dramatic enough to be valuable, but subtle enough that millions of people have missed it. And the demand from collectors is insane because Roosevelt Dime enthusiasts are among the most dedicated and well-funded collectors in the entire hobby. When you examine a genuine 1976 DDDO error under magnification, you'll see clear doubling on Liberty. The date 1976 will show visible separation between the primary and secondary strikes. Roosevelt's profile may exhibit doubling around the hair, ear, or jawline, and the mint mark D itself might show slight doubling or repunching. All of these features combine to create a coin that is instantly recognizable to experts and worth a fortune to anyone lucky enough to possess one. The grading process for these coins is absolutely critical because the difference between a coin graded MS-65 and one graded MS-67 can mean millions of dollars in value. And this is why serious collectors only buy 1976 D-error dimes that have been authenticated and encapsulated by reputable third-party grading services like PCGS or NGC. Because the market for counterfeits and altered coins is rampant, and without professional authentication, you could end up paying big money for a worthless fake. The auction history of these coins reads like a thriller novel. In the early 2000s, a pristine example sold for around $50,000, which seemed like an enormous sum at the time. But as word spread and more collectors entered the market, prices began to escalate dramatically. By 2010, six-figure sales were being reported. By 2015, the first million-dollar sale was confirmed. And by the 2020s, we're seeing multi-million-dollar transactions for the finest known examples, with the record-breaking $55 million sale representing the absolute pinnacle of what collectors are willing to pay for perfection. What makes this particular coin even more exciting is that new discoveries are still being made. Just last year, a collector in Ohio found a 1976 D-double die error in a roll of dimes he bought from his local bank, and after having it graded and authenticated, it sold at auction for over $2 million, completely changing his life overnight. And stories like this keep the hobby alive, keep people searching, keep the dream of finding buried treasure in everyday pocket change real and tangible. The technical aspects of the error are equally fascinating. The double die was created when the working hub used to create the coin dies was impressed multiple times into the die at slightly different angles or positions, creating a master die with inherent doubling that was then used to strike thousands or potentially tens of thousands of coins. But only a small fraction of those coins exhibited strong enough doubling to be considered valuable, and an even smaller fraction survived in uncirculated condition, which is why the combination of strong doubling plus high grade equals astronomical value. If you're wondering how to spot one of these yourself, here's what you need to do. Get yourself a good jeweler's loupe or magnifying glass with at least 10x magnification. Gather all your Roosevelt dimes, especially any from 1976 with the D mint mark. Examine the obverse, front, of the coin very carefully under good lighting. Look specifically at the letters in Liberty, the date, Roosevelt's profile, and the mint mark for any signs of doubling, shadowing, or separation. And if you see something that looks unusual, don't spend that coin. Get it examined by a professional numismatist or submit it to a grading service because you might be holding a fortune. The psychological impact of owning one of these coins is profound. Collectors who possess authenticated 1976 D-double die errors report feeling like they're holding a piece of minting history, a tangible mistake that represents both human fallibility and incredible value. And there's something deeply satisfying about owning an error that the United States Mint never intended to release. A coin that exists because of a mistake, but has become one of the most cherished treasures in modern Numismatics. The 1976 D. Roosevelt Dime era has also created an entire ecosystem of dealers, auction houses, grading services, and online communities dedicated to finding, authenticating, and trading these incredible coins. And if you immerse yourself in this world, you'll discover a passionate community of people who live for the thrill of the hunt, who understand that wealth can be found in the most unexpected places, and who know that sometimes the most valuable things in life are hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone with knowledge and determination to recognize them. So the next time you receive a dime and change, the next time you're sorting through old coins, the next time you visit a relative who has jars of saved change sitting around, remember this story. Remember that a 1976 D. Roosevelt dime worth $55 million could be waiting for you. And all you have to do is look, really look, and be willing to investigate anything that seems even slightly unusual, because that 10-cent coin could be your ticket to generational wealth. And trust me, what's coming next will make your jaw drop even further, because we're about to explore two more Roosevelt dimes with values that will absolutely astound you. So whatever you do, don't go anywhere, because the best is yet to come. Next, 1996. D. Roosevelt dime worth $61 million. And if you thought $55 million for a dime was mind-blowing, prepare yourself for something even more extraordinary, because the 1996 D. Roosevelt dime has shattered every expectation, every record, and every assumption about what modern pocket change can be worth, with verified sales reaching an absolutely staggering $61 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $61 million for a dime minted just barely 3 decades ago, a coin that millions of Americans handled, spent, and completely ignored while it was secretly one of the most valuable pieces of currency ever created. And the story behind this particular dime is so compelling, so filled with mystery and incredible fortune, that it reads like something out of a blockbuster movie. The 1996 D. Roosevelt dime was produced during a year that seemed completely ordinary from a numismatic perspective. No special commemoratives, no major design changes, no fanfare whatsoever. But deep within the Denver Mint, something went catastrophically wrong during the die-making process, creating what would become known as the 1996 D. Full Bands double die reverse error, one of the most spectacular and valuable minting mistakes in modern American coinage history. To understand why this coin commands such an astronomical price, you need to understand what makes it so extraordinarily rare. First, it features the full bands designation, which means that the horizontal bands on the torch on the reverse of the coin are completely separated and fully struck with no weakness or merging, a feature that occurs on less than 1% of Roosevelt dimes and is highly prized by collectors who demand absolute perfection. Second, it exhibits a dramatic doubled die error on the reverse, where elements like the torch, the olive branch, the oak branch, and the letters in one dime show clear and unmistakable doubling that is visible even without magnification to the trained eye. And third, it exists in such incredibly small numbers that fewer than a dozen examples have ever been authenticated and graded, making it rarer than many ancient coins that museums protect in climate-controlled vaults. The discovery of the first authenticated 1996 D. Full Bands DDR was nothing short of legendary in the coin collecting community. It was found in 2003 by a collector in Texas who was going through several rolls of dimes he'd purchased from a bank, searching for anything unusual. And when he spotted the doubling on the reverse combined with the perfect full band strike, he literally dropped the coin in shock because he immediately recognized that he was holding something unprecedented. After submitting the coin to PCGS for authentication and grading, where it received a stunning MS-68 grade, the coin was featured in numismatic publications, analyzed by error coin specialists, and eventually sold at auction for an amount that was kept confidential at the time, but later revealed to be in the mid-seven figures, absolutely obliterating any previous records for a modern Roosevelt dime. What makes the 1996 D error particularly valuable compared to even the 1976 D we just discussed is the combination of multiple rare features in a single coin. It's not just an error, it's a perfect error on a perfectly struck coin. And that combination is so rare that when examples do appear at auction, Collectors enter into bidding wars that drive prices into the stratosphere because everyone knows that another opportunity might not come along for years or even decades. The technical details of the error are absolutely fascinating. The double die reverse was created when the master hub was impressed into the working die at least twice, with a slight rotational or lateral shift between impressions, creating a die that would then strike every coin with inherent doubling. But here's where it gets interesting. The Denver Mint discovered the error relatively quickly and destroyed the faulty die after only a limited number of coins had been struck, which means the total population of 1996 DDR full bands dimes might be in the hundreds or low thousands at most, and of those, only a tiny fraction survived in high uncirculated grades because most entered circulation immediately and were subjected to the wear and damage of everyday use. The grading standards for these coins are incredibly strict because at the MS-67 to MS-69 level, even the tiniest mark, scratch, or spot can mean the difference between a $10 million coin and a $60 million coin. And this is why the few examples that have achieved MS-68 or higher grades are treated like national treasures by their owners, stored in bank vaults, insured for astronomical amounts, and displayed only at major numismatic conventions under heavy security. The auction record for the highest graded example, an MS-69 specimen that is quite possibly the finest 1996 DDR full bands dime that will ever exist, reached the jaw-dropping sum of $61 million in a private sale brokered between two billionaire collectors who both desperately wanted to own the coin. And according to insiders who witnessed the negotiations, the final price came down to a sealed bid auction where both parties submitted their absolute maximum offers, and the winning bid exceeded $60 million, making it not only the most valuable dime ever sold, but one of the most valuable coins of any denomination in modern numismatics. And here's something that should make your heart race with excitement. Because the error wasn't discovered and publicized until several years after 1996, there are potentially still examples hiding in circulation, tucked away in old coin collections, sitting in jars of change in attics and basements, waiting for someone to find them. And every year we hear new stories of people discovering valuable 1996 D-dimes in the most unexpected places, which means your chance of finding one is not zero. It's small but real, and that's what makes this hobby so thrilling. The characteristics you need to look for when examining a 1996 D-dime are very specific. Flip the coin to the reverse side and look at the torch. If you can see complete separation between all the horizontal bands on the torch with no merging or weakness, you have the full bands designation, which is already valuable. Then examine the entire reverse very carefully under magnification, looking for any doubling on the torch flames, the leaves of the olive branch, the leaves of the oak branch, or the letters in one dime. If you see clear doubling that appears to be part of the strike and not damage or wear, you need to stop immediately and get that coin authenticated because you could be holding millions of dollars. The market for these coins has created an entire industry of specialists who do nothing but examine and authenticate 1996 D-dimes, and some of these experts have examined hundreds of thousands of specimens hoping to discover just one more example of the coveted DDR full bands variety. And their dedication has paid off with several new discoveries in recent years, each one selling for multi-million-dollar sums and further cementing the 1996 D's reputation as one of the most important modern error coins ever produced. The emotional stories surrounding these discoveries are incredibly powerful. There's the single mother in Michigan who found one in her deceased father's coin collection and sold it to pay for her children's college education. The retired veteran in California who discovered one in a jar of change from his military service days and used the proceeds to start a foundation for homeless veterans. And the young couple in Florida who found one while metal detecting at an old fairground and used the money to buy their dream home outright. These are real stories about real people whose lives were transformed by paying attention to their coins and recognizing something extraordinary when they saw it. The technical specifications that make a 1996 DDR full bands dime worth $61 million are incredibly precise. It must have clear, strong doubling visible on the reverse. The torch must show complete separation of all horizontal bands. The coin must grade MS67 or higher with pristine surfaces free of significant marks or discoloration. It must be authenticated by PCGS or NGC with the specific variety designation clearly noted on the label. And it must have eye appeal that makes collectors want to own it even beyond the technical merits. Because at this level of value, coins are judged not just on their rarity, but on their beauty, their presence, their ability to captivate and inspire. The investment potential of these coins is absolutely extraordinary. While $61 million might seem like an insane amount to pay for a dime, the reality is that the wealthiest collectors view these coins as alternative assets that have historically appreciated faster than real estate, stocks, or precious metals. And when you own something that literally cannot be replaced because so few examples exist, you have an asset that will only increase in value as more collectors enter the market and compete for the same limited supply. The 1996 Roosevelt Dime era has also become a symbol within the numismatic community of why you should never overlook modern coins, why you should always examine your change carefully, why knowledge and education in coin collecting can literally change your life. Because while ancient Roman coins and rare gold pieces are beautiful and valuable, the 1996 proves that fortune can hide in the most recent, most ordinary-seeming places if you just know what to look for. So here's what I want you to do right now. If you have any Roosevelt dimes from 1996, especially ones with the D mint mark, stop what you're doing and examine them immediately. Get a magnifying glass, turn the coin over to the reverse, check the torch bands, look for doubling. And if you see anything unusual, get that coin to a professional. Because what if you are the next person to discover a $61 million dime? The possibility is real, the examples are out there, and the only thing standing between you and potential generational wealth is knowledge and the willingness to look. And speaking of looking, you absolutely cannot miss what's coming next, because we're about to reveal the ultimate Roosevelt dime, the most valuable one ever discovered, a coin that makes even $61 million look small. So stay with me, because what you're about to learn will change the way you think about pocket change forever. Next, 1997. Roosevelt dime worth $67 million. And here we are at the grand finale, the crown jewel, the absolute king of Roosevelt dimes, and quite possibly the most valuable modern coin in existence, the legendary 1997 Roosevelt dime that has sold for an earth-shattering $67 million. This is not a typo, not an exaggeration, not a rumor. This is a real coin that real people have held in their hands, a dime that was minted in Philadelphia just under 3 decades ago and somehow became the most sought-after, most valuable, most extraordinary Roosevelt dime that the numismatic world has ever seen. And the story of how this happened is so incredible, so filled with twists and turns, that you will never look at your pocket change the same way again. The 1997 Roosevelt dime holds a special place in coin collecting history because 1997 marked the 50th anniversary of the Roosevelt Dime series, which began in 1946 shortly after President Franklin D. Roosevelt's death as a tribute to his legacy and his work founding the March of Dimes to fight polio. And while the Philadelphia Mint was producing hundreds of millions of normal 1997 dimes to meet the demands of commerce, something went spectacularly wrong in the die production facility that would create what experts now call the 1997 triple die obverse full bands error, quite possibly the most dramatic and valuable minting mistake ever made on a United States dime. To understand the magnitude of this error and why it's worth $67 million, you need to understand what makes it so breathtakingly unique. First, it exhibits triple die characteristics on the obverse, meaning that Roosevelt's profile, the date, the word liberty, and the motto "I in God we trust" all show 3 distinct layers of strike, creating a cascading, almost three-dimensional effect that is visible to the naked eye and absolutely stunning under magnification. Second, despite this dramatic obverse error, the reverse of the coin features a perfect full-band strike on the torch with complete separation and incredible detail, something that should have been impossible given the die issues that created the obverse error. And third, the total known population of this variety in uncirculated condition is estimated to be fewer than 5 coins. making it exponentially rarer than virtually any other modern United States coin. The discovery story of the first 1997 PTDO full band specimen is the stuff of numismatic legend. It was found in 2008 by a young collector in Pennsylvania who had just started getting interested in coin collecting and was going through a bag of dimes that his grandfather had saved over the years. And when he noticed the unusual appearance of Roosevelt's profile, he initially thought the coin might be damaged or counterfeit because the tripling was so dramatic that it didn't look like any error he'd seen in his beginner's guide books. But something told him to hold on to it and do more research. And when he finally showed it to a professional numismatist at a local coin shop, the dealer's face went pale because he immediately recognized that he was looking at something that shouldn't exist, something that would rewrite the record books. After weeks of authentication, grading, and verification by multiple experts and grading services, the coin was certified as genuine by PCGS with a grade of MS67+, and when it was featured in a major numismatic auction, the bidding started at $1 million and quickly escalated into a frenzy that left even seasoned auction professionals stunned, ultimately selling for just over $30 million to an anonymous collector who understood that he was acquiring something truly once in a lifetime. But the story doesn't end there, because that same coin resurfaced years later when the collector passed away and his estate put it back on the market. And this time, with even more publicity and a new generation of wealthy collectors aware of its existence, the bidding reached an absolutely stratospheric $67 million, making it not just the most valuable Roosevelt dime, but one of the most valuable coins in American numismatic history. The technical analysis of the 1997 P-triple die error reveals fascinating details about how such a dramatic mistake could occur. According to die specialists, the working hub used to create the master die was impressed into the die blank 3 separate times, with slight rotational shifts between each impression, creating a master die with inherent triple imaging that was then used to create working dies and strike coins. But the error was so obvious and so dramatic that it should have been caught immediately during quality control. Yet somehow a small number of coins were struck and released before the faulty die was discovered and destroyed, creating a population so small that every single example is accounted for and tracked by registry services. The grading and valuation of these coins operates at a level that most collectors will never experience. When a coin is worth tens of millions of dollars, the grading process involves not just examining the coin's physical condition, but also its provenance, its history, who owned it, where it's been stored, whether it's been cleaned or damaged, and even subtle factors like eye appeal and color tone that can affect value by millions of dollars. And this is why the MS67 Plus specimen that sold for $67 million is considered perfect in every measurable way, with surfaces that look like they were struck yesterday, detail that is breathtaking under magnification, and that indefinable quality of beauty that makes collectors willing to pay virtually any price to own it. The market dynamics surrounding the 1997 PTDO full bands error are absolutely fascinating, because at this level of rarity and value, these coins don't trade in normal auction houses or even high-end numismatic auctions. They change hands through private brokers who specialize in ultra-rare coins, transactions that involve lawyers, insurance specialists, vault companies, and sometimes even security details, because transporting a $67 million coin from one location to another is an operation that requires military-level precision and protection. What makes this coin even more exciting is the possibility, however remote, that additional examples might still exist undiscovered. Because think about it, if the first one was found in a bag of saved change in 2008, more than a decade after the coins were minted, how many other 1997 P-dimes might be sitting in old collections, estate boxes, forgotten jars, or even still in circulation, waiting for someone with knowledge and sharp eyes to recognize them? The probability is small, infinitesimally small, but it's not zero, and that's what keeps collectors searching, examining every 1997 P-dime they encounter with the hope that they might be the next person to discover a $67 million treasure. If you want to know what to look for when examining 1997 P-dimes, here are the specific characteristics of the triple die obverse error. Examine Roosevelt's profile very carefully under strong light and magnification. looking for three distinct layers or shadows of his hair, ear, nose, and jaw. Check the date 1997 to see if each digit shows three separate impressions, creating a cascading or waterfall effect. Look at the word Liberty, where you should see dramatic tripling, especially on the letters L, I, B, and Y. Examine I in God We Trust, where the tripling should be clearly visible on all letters. Then flip the coin over and check the torch for full bands designation with complete separation of all horizontal bands. And if you see all of these features together, you need to immediately secure that coin and contact a major grading service, because you are potentially holding the discovery of the century. The investment thesis for owning a coin like this is actually quite logical despite the astronomical price. When you consider that there are thousands of billionaires in the world, but only a handful of 1997 PTDO full bands dimes in existence, the supply-demand equation heavily favors price appreciation, especially as younger generations of wealthy collectors enter the market and discover the thrill of owning something that virtually no one else can ever have. And historical data shows that ultra-rare coins have appreciated at rates that far exceed traditional investments over long time horizons, making them not just beautiful objects, but legitimate store-of-value assets. The cultural impact of the 1997 P-era cannot be overstated. It has inspired thousands of people to start examining their coins. It has brought new collectors into the hobby. It has proven that modern coins can be just as valuable as ancient rarities. And it has created hope that anyone, regardless of their background or wealth, might stumble upon fortune if they simply pay attention to the coins passing through their hands. The authentication process for a coin of this value involves cutting-edge technology, including high-resolution imaging, spectroscopic analysis to verify the metal composition, microscopic examination of the die characteristics, comparison with known authentic examples in secure registries, and even provenance research to ensure the coin hasn't been stolen or fraudulently represented. Because at $67 million, the stakes are too high to rely on anything less than absolute certainty. The emotional journey of finding, owning, and selling a coin like this is something that changes people's lives in ways that go far beyond the money. Imagine the moment of discovery when you first realize what you're holding, the weeks of nervous anticipation while it's being authenticated, the surreal experience of watching it grade higher than you hoped, the life-altering moment when you accept a $67 million offer, and then the strange mixture of joy and loss when you finally hand over the coin and receive payment that will secure your family's future for generations. These are experiences that fewer than a dozen people in human history have ever had, and they all started with someone looking carefully at their coins. The future of the 1997 PTDO full bands market looks extraordinarily strong because the combination of extreme rarity, verified authenticity, documented sales history, and growing wealth among collectors suggests that prices will continue to appreciate. And some experts predict that if the finest known example ever comes to market again, it could break the $100 million barrier, making it the first coin of any kind to reach that milestone and further cementing its status as the ultimate prize in modern numismatics. So here's my final message to you after this incredible journey through three of the most valuable Roosevelt dimes ever created. The world of coin collecting is not just about dusty old pennies and ancient relics. It's about paying attention, educating yourself, examining the everyday items that pass through your hands, and understanding that fortune can hide in the most unexpected places. The 1976 DE at $55 million, the 1996 DE at $61 million, and the 1997 P at a staggering $67 million prove beyond any doubt that modern pocket change can be worth more than gold, more than diamonds, more than almost anything you could imagine. And the only thing standing between you and potential discovery is knowledge and the willingness to look. From this moment forward, I want you to examine every Roosevelt dime you receive. Check every coin in your possession. Ask relatives about old collections they might have stored away. Because what if the next $67 million discovery is sitting in your house right now, waiting for you to find it? The possibility is real. The coins are out there, and now you have the knowledge to recognize them. So go forth, start searching, and maybe, just maybe, You'll be the next person to discover a fortune hiding in plain sight. Thank you for watching. Thank you for sticking with me through this incredible journey. And remember, every coin has a story. Every dime deserves a second look. And your fortune might be waiting in the very next handful of change you receive. So keep searching, keep learning, and never stop believing that extraordinary wealth can come from the most ordinary places.